the lens from technology itself to the people waiting to use it. When we talk about the next billion, we are talking about communities entering the internet for the first time. Young people, families, rural creators, emerging markets, and voices that have been historically undeserved. Building for the next billion is not about scale in numbers, it is about scale in empathy. It is about building networks that understand diverse languages, diverse devices, diverse bandwidth limitations, and realities. It is about ensuring that the Internet of Future isn't built for a few but for everyone. To help us imagine this inclusive future, please welcome Gagana B, CTO of U4Tech, a technologist committed to building networks that carry not just data but dignity. Over to you.
Hello? Hi, can you guys hear me? Perfect. Okay, so hi, good afternoon. It's an honor and privilege to be here today. It is my fourth time as a speaker at GSC, and it feels great to be back year after year. Not gonna lie, it's also kind of intimidating with all the rolling cameras that leave you with a digital footprint of your talk on the internet for a very long time, leaving your talk accessible to billions of people across the internet. But today I want to talk about those who are not as privileged, who do not have the same opportunities as the rest of us, and those who are not yet connected to the internet. Even the biggest global economies today, including the global south as well as the developed countries, have millions of people today who are as yet unconnected to the internet. But my interest in distributed systems like the internet stems from a completely different place, a different kind of a distributed system, which is the brain. So I started studying cats' striate cortices, which inspired my work on computational topology. Then I did a research fellowship at Stanford University in the Crowd Research Collective on computation and policy, followed by my work on spatial and physical intelligence at Indian Institute of Science. I worked on part-hole hierarchies for my bachelor's capstone thesis. Then I was leading a non-profit organization in the US for our important work on inductive priors, plasticity and coherence and causality. Then I was inducted into the executive board at Neuromatch Academy, where I worked on neural entrainment and cross-lingual inferencing and multimodality. Then I was an expert reviewer for the European Space Agency, where we were looking at large language models in generative AI at scale. So all of this work over the years has resulted in multiple patents, papers in premier conferences like ICML, ICLR, NeurIPS, and tons of invited talks like this. Thank you. So all of that seamlessly connected when I started working on Project Diaspora, which is where we work across the stack from policy, which guides how the infrastructure is to be built, which sort of lays the groundwork for multitudes of bits of data to flow into the system, intercoupled with enterprises which build intelligence models. On top of this, all of which together drive stakeholder value. So we're working on connecting the on doing the world's largest rural connectivity project here in India, where we're connecting more than 200,000 villages across 7 million miles, including latest technologies, including 5G, quantum computing, and all of that. So are you guys ready to play? So I'm going to give you clues, and we're going to figure out why this is such a hard problem to solve. Right, so let me just give you an overview of what I'm looking for. So at the outset, it seems quite easy, right? There are a couple of villages which are called Gram Panchayats. Village headquarters in India are called Gram Panchayats. And all of those locations need to be seamlessly connected to build the most optimal network. Now, what is optimality and how is it defined? Optimality is defined across a multitude of dimensions. You can probably guess some of it, right? Bandwidth, throughput, signal strength, and all of these factors. So I see some of you already trying to match it. So yeah, done. The seamless connectivity to the most optimal network is done, but not quite. Because Sherlock says, you see, but you do not observe. There are administrative hierarchies that you need to follow. What does that mean? We know this, right? Union governs the states. The state is subdivided into districts, districts into blocks, and blocks to villages, right? So that hierarchy needs to be followed when you're connecting networks. And assuming that is done here, because that is in a slightly different color, and also networks are built in loops. Why? Because of dynamic redundancy. You don't want networks at scale to have single points of failure between links. You want them to be robust enough to have multiple points of failure across links, right? Watson, look up at the sky and tell me what you see. What do you think that means? Okay, let's go on an India tour virtually from Kashmir to Kanyakumari and see what changes we need. First is diversity of terrain. There's a price we need to pay for beauty, right? Like the geography is seamlessly connected with beautiful mountains, rivers, private lands, agricultural fields, railways, all of which run through the geography. So when you're planning networks at scale in the real environment, you need to figure out all of these different factors. The next obvious thing that comes to mind is different contours and different elevations require different execution strategies. Going back to what Sherlock said, look up at the sky and tell me what you see. That probably means we need to also look at weather constraints, right? Because planning environment is different from survey environment, which is different from execution environment. So all of these needs to be considered when you're planning networks. And the last thing is environment stochasticity, which can be attributed to abiotic as well as biotic factors like changes in foliage, which affects line of sight. And designs need to be adaptable while also maintaining minimal fluctuations. And going back to the one we had before, which is topology and medium. Different topologies and mediums have their own standard operating procedures, functional requirements, non-functional requirements, all of which needs to be respected and followed. Are we ready to go back to Sherlock? Okay, let's try. I have no data yet. It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts. Fair enough. Talking about data, the first thing is existing network reconfiguration, right? Like, because there is existing networks. We've been doing telecom for a long time, more than 100 years. So legacy data is not logged. And floating point variables have variations. To give you an idea of how difficult it is to work at scale, you can see the difference that a single decimal point can make, right? A single decimal point can help you differentiate between a country and a district, or a town and a street, right? So you miss a single decimal point, it becomes very hard to work at scale. Okay. So the next one is underworld problems, which is there are unknown networks of cables, gasways, water pipelines, all of which run underneath. So when you're planning networks, you need to consider all of these different factors. Sherlock reminds us to also inspect sources of data while we're at it. So let's do that. There's a very strong interdependence or intercoupling between legal, financial, as well as technical parts. What does that mean? So when you're doing networks at scale, right, the financial payouts depend on the technical velocity of the project, which also have legal repercussions. So all of this needs to be mapped out when you're trying to build the network. Okay, so what you do in this world is a matter of no consequence. The question is whether you can make people believe what you have done. Right, so the societal and people factors, right? There's a lack of awareness in rural areas. So a lack of cooperation sort of stems from that. We also need to look at those aspects. Demand varies. Optimizing its scale is hard as demand and demand projections vary. When we're looking at networks, we're looking at what is the population at a given place, what is the projected population, what is the migration rate, and that determines what type of cable you use and what grade of lease lines you need to cater to the future population demand that is going to be there at that particular place in time. And the local context, the same approaches and algorithms are unlikely to work everywhere due to local density and demography. Which means that, for instance, right now in the project that we're working on, in Uttar Pradesh, we have more than 45,000 GPs that we need to connect. But in Kerala, it is less than 1,000. So you can't basically apply the same algorithm everywhere. The world is full of obvious things which nobody by any chance ever notices. What does that mean? Right, technology adaptability. System must function in low resource settings while maintaining data integrity and security. You cannot have a system that plans the internet using the internet. So all of the apps and everything needs to work in offline settings. Are we ready to go back to Sherlock? Okay, when you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. So Sherlock approves. So the story is, we go to the client. Client says, come at once if convenient, if inconvenient, come all the same. He asks me, how does your AI work? And I tell him that AI works on the principle of correlation as a function of similarity or resemblance, which is how all of AI works. He says logic is rare, therefore it is upon logic that you should rather dwell. So the moral of the story is that you have changing rules and user preferences which needs to be taken into account, which means design variations which need to come together consistently to arrive at stakeholder agreement. In terms of summarizing up this problem space, as well as to tell you the kind of problems we're dealing with at the backend, I'm going to talk about 6 different interpretations of networks that we're dealing with in the backend simultaneously while we're working this. So this is important because both NP-hard and NP-complete problems are relatively unexplored. So isomorphism is not yet known. The first is networks are obviously looked at as graphs, and flow networks if you're into cyber-physical systems. Non-deterministic finite automata is also a particular dimension which we are looking at in terms of state space configurations. We're also looking at algorithmic game theory, where you have resource constraints with competing and non-competing objectives. Then computational geometry or topology. Mathematical set theory, where we're looking at it as groups and the mathematical properties that they need to follow. And the recursive sequences or geometrical fractals. So in terms of the solution space, the comprehensive end-to-end networking that we're dealing with is design planning, that is optimizing networks at the protocol level, which have more than 50 different metrics that are continually and mathematically looked at to guarantee network optimality. The second is, on top of that sits a network, infrastructure that is agnostic to the vendors or to any particular set of infrastructure providers, that hundreds of such devices needs to come together and they're auto-configured for deployment at scale. Then the network operations center, first at the state network operations center, which is synchronized with the central network operations center, where distributed networks across scale are monitored for disaster recovery, network utilization, and all of those factors. Then the network observability layer, where hundreds of autonomous agents crawl through the network trying to fix issues at scale. Then zero trust architectures or enterprise security, where security across multiple levels of the stack is ensured. In terms of the impact we've been able to create, we've been able to reduce the time that it takes to plan networks by more than 700 times. For instance, if you had to plan a network the traditional way for, let's say, Whitefield, Bangalore, that would take you somewhere between 6 to 7 hours. We are doing networks from Kashmir to Kanyakumari in 30 seconds or less. So the second is effort. It used to take multiple different clicks to plan networks, but we've reduced it to just 3 clicks across scale. And the last one is cost. We've been able to slash costs by more than 35 times, where it takes us less than $1 to plan networks. In terms of the applicability, right, I've just talked about terrestrial, non-terrestrial, indoor-outdoor networks right now, but we can configure data centers in no time at all. We can, that can include 5G, 6G, hybrid, or any kind of network patterns, for instance. We're able to deal with real-time and latency-sensitive applications. Scalable security frameworks, including quantum cryptography at scale. We can easily power up urban and rural mobility because we have the data, and also work with IoT fabrics, edge intelligence, integration, and offline settings, and offline AI. Just to double down on the impact, the first is I'm going to always maintain that telecom is a safety critical domain. There was an outage recently in Australia that lasted 13 hours due to a firewall update, which led a 6-week-old infant and a 68-year-old man dead because they couldn't access emergency services. Since we're working in this trifactor of data, infra, and services, network fabrics can act as an equalizer where you can drive uniformity across scale, right? This sort of references back to the 2025 Nobel Economic Prize where they talked about the GDP increase that AI can bring per person at scale. So now we're talking about the next billion people on the internet. So imagine the economy, imagine the impact we can have on the global economy. And lastly, to build ecosystems of support for rural markets, right? This is where I would like to put out an open call for collaboration, because we're trying to build this and we won't be able to do this alone, right? GDP and economy does not just mean numbers. It's about people who have better access to healthcare, better education, better lifestyles, better standards of living in general. And for that, I would like to put out two parts of the problem that I'm very keen about. The first is that all of our markets, all of our products today are built for the urban market, right? That is because the customer understanding in the rural markets is quite poor, and the market is quite complex. The rural market doesn't offer the same demographic returns that the urban market does. So also community trust and social economic levels and the level of complexity which they are trained to handle is very different from the urban market. So since we're working across the stack, we have all the information for certain demographies, how it works, why it works a certain way, and all of that. So we're looking to share these insights with relevant markets who are looking to scale their businesses there, and also provide the right ecosystems for the rural market. The second is that linguistic diversity. This is a problem that I'm quite excited about, because we're today dealing with a very, very, very small fraction of the actual lingua franca that exists here in India. And the beauty of the problem, just like the networking at scale, which I talked about earlier, is that if you solve the problem for India, you've solved the problem for the world, because of the sheer complexity and the diversity that these kind of problems offer. So with that, I would like to say thank you so much. Thank you to GHC. Thank you to the jurors who gave me an opportunity to speak here today. Thank you to the session chairs, Shailaja, Gomati, and Yogini, for making this infinitely better than the first presentation that I had in mind. And thank you to all my colleagues and everyone. I feel very grateful to be surrounded by men who are very supportive of my work, including my friend Vivek here. And yeah, thank you to all for being here in my talk today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gagana. Can we have the session curators onto the dais to...
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.